She never asked about my work schedule, never cared how many hours I put in or what I'd achieved. All she saw was my face, too young, too confident, too different. And that was enough for her to decide I didn't belong. She showed up at my front door one morning, all smiles and suspicion, offering a thinly veiled, friendly warning about community standards. She didn't ask for ID, didn't check records. That came later, once she dragged it all the way into court. Some folks think success has an age limit. If you're under 30, you're renting. If you're over 30, you must have married into it. Me? I didn't fit either story. My name's Nina Bell. I'm 24, fresh out of law school, now working as a real estate paralegal. Most people assume I'm just another broke millennial hustling for rent. What they don't know is that my grandfather, Thomas Bell, founded Crestwood Pines, the very neighborhood I live in now. The house on 312 Fern Ridge Avenue wasn't bought. It was passed down. A part of my family's legacy. 3 months after I moved in, I landed on the radar of Dana Whitley, head of the local HOA. She'd been president for 4 years and had a reputation for being petty, aggressive, and way too comfortable with pushing her weight around. Married to a senior partner at a regional bank, Dana thought her position gave her the power to decide who did or didn't fit in her neighborhood. To her, I was too young, too unqualified, too everything. So she started building a case against me. Fabricated, of course. From day one, it was clear she saw me as a threat to her version of order. It started small. Dana began stopping by just to chat, always with a notebook in hand. "Do your parents visit often?" she'd ask. "Is the actual homeowner around?" I explained, nicely at first, that I owned the house. But she'd smile condescendingly and say things like, "Sweetheart, people your age don't just end up with houses like this." By the second week, she was taking pictures, my car, my garbage bins, even my porch furniture. I once caught her measuring my lawn with a tape measure, claiming my grass was above the legal limit. It wasn't. She fined me anyway. Soon came the neighborhood-wide emails, suspicious activity at Fern Ridge Avenue, possible squatters, unvetted residents. She never used my name, but everyone knew who she meant. Overnight, I became the outcast. Neighbors who once waved when I walked my dog began turning away. An elderly woman across the street started crossing to avoid my side. It was as if Dana's whispers had turned me into a stranger in my own home. Then it escalated. Fake violations kept coming. Noise complaints when I hadn't been home, warnings about commercial vehicles because of my perfectly normal Toyota, fines for supposed code violations that didn't exist. I challenged her, but Dana insisted she had official measurements and board approval. She had neither. One night, she called the police, claiming I was trespassing. A young officer named Alex Jensen arrived, visibly uncomfortable. "Sorry, ma'am. I have to follow up on every report," he said. Dana stood on the sidewalk like she was about to win a prize, arms crossed, smirking. Inside, I calmly showed the officer my deed, ID, and insurance documents. He took one look, nodded, and said, "You're clearly the legal homeowner. I'll be having a conversation with the person who made this false report." I watched from the window as Officer Jensen told Dana this was her third false report and that further complaints could lead to charges. That's when I decided, enough. That night, I called my father, Judge Raymond Bell. He listened, then said, "Your grandfather built that neighborhood on integrity. Maybe it's time someone reminded them of that." Armed with legal training and family history, I started my own investigation. Crestwood Pines had a long paper trail, and I had access. What I found was damning. Dana had rewritten HOA rules without proper votes. She ignored violations from her inner circle while targeting people she didn't like. She even used HOA funds, over $3,000, for a private attorney to investigate me. I reached out to some longtime residents. That's when things shifted. Mrs. Evelyn Chon, 76, remembered my grandfather and lit up when she heard my name. "Your granddad was the kindest soul in this place. He would have hated what it's become." She introduced me to others, residents Dana had bullied into silence. There was Luis Ortega, a handyman who'd seen Dana kick over my flower pots. Linda Reyes, a mother of two, fined for improper yard decorations, which turned out to be her kids' toys. One by one, they came forward. With their help, I compiled a report. I also contacted the county HOA compliance board. Turns out, Crestwood Pines had been using outdated bylaws that gave Dana more power than she should have had. The board was very interested in what I had to share. The next HOA meeting was unlike any other. Usually a handful of folks showed up. This time, nearly everyone did, almost 90% of the neighborhood. Dana strutted in, expecting a standing ovation. Instead, she walked into a silent, packed room. She launched into her usual monologue, talking about community standards and fraudulent homeownership. She even had a binder full of evidence against me. Pictures of mail, my trash bins, a timeline of when I mowed the lawn. When she finished, I stepped forward. I introduced myself, showed my credentials, and presented a photo of my grandfather cutting the ribbon at the neighborhood's founding ceremony. This house has been in my family since day one, I told them. I didn't just belong here. I helped build this place in every sense that matters. Then I exposed Dana. I showed financial records, audio clips, legal filings. I connected my laptop to a projector and played video proof. Dana destroying flowers, confronting neighbors, manipulating records. One by one, my neighbors stood up. Mrs. Chan, Luis, Linda, each told their story. Each confirmed what I'd revealed. Someone called for a vote. Out of 48 households, 45 voted to remove Dana as HOA president. She protested, screamed about lawsuits, and stormed out. But it was over. That night, I got more handshakes and apologies than I could count. 1 week later, Dana and her husband had a for sale sign in their yard. I was voted in as the new HOA president. At first, I resisted. I was young, new to the role. But Mrs. Chan smiled and said, "So was your grandfather when he started." My first act? I created a review board to oversee all fines. I launched a transparency program for HOA spending. And that $3,000 Dana misused, we recovered it from her house sale and used it to build a new playground. The neighborhood began to breathe again. Barbecues returned. Kids played in the streets. People smiled. Even Mrs. Patterson, who once avoided me, started dropping off banana bread every Sunday. 6 months later, we held Crestwood's first community day in honor of my grandfather. My dad spoke. I spoke. Dana, long gone, became a lesson we never wanted to repeat. I even met someone, Eli Ortega, Luis's son, a landscape designer. We worked on a community garden together, and, well, he proposed to me right there 6 months later. 2 years on, I'm living in a neighborhood transformed, still in my family home, now next door to the one we bought from old Mr. Jensen when he moved to Arizona. I run a law firm specializing in HOA reform. I get calls from all over the country from people facing their own Danas. And every time I win a case, I think of my grandfather's words. Leadership isn't about power. It's about protecting the powerless. Turns out he was right. In the end, what started as a battle over one house became a turning point for an entire community. We didn't just remove a toxic leader. We reclaimed our neighborhood, rebuilt trust, and created a place where fairness mattered more than power. People began showing up for each other, speaking up instead of staying silent, and realizing that real change doesn't come from authority. It comes from action. I never expected to lead, but I'm proud that I did. And I'm even prouder of what we built together. Crestwood Pines is no longer a place ruled by fear. It's a place where families thrive, where newcomers are welcomed, and where bullies don't get the last word. If there's one thing I've learned, it's this. Never underestimate the power of one person who knows the truth, refuses to back down, and believes a better community is worth fighting for. Because it absolutely is.